We're going to go through a little session now, which I would like to have had a lot more time to do, but we really don't. And I hope everybody understands that and cooperates. We're going to have a couple of folks read a resolution that the leadership of UNAC put together, and hope that you all will agree that we could adopt it with some demands for our time and some actions that we can do moving into the future. The key thing is that after we raise our hand and adopt it and support it, that we all do it. And that will make us a strong movement and a strong coalition. At the end of that, we're going to have a couple of brief greetings. And before the greetings or after the greetings, I'm not sure, we're going to have Margaret Kimberly from the Black Agenda Report, senior columnist for Black Agenda Report, Black Alliance for Peace, and UNAC Administrative Committee, just give some closing words to bring us all together. This session is mostly going to be chaired by the woman to my right, is Cassia Laham, who's a member of the UNAC Administrative Committee. And I'm going to give her the mic now, and she's going to introduce some people who are going to read quickly and clearly the resolution, which is also printed in the back of the brochure of the journal that you all have. So I'm going to turn it over here to Cassia.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. So, as Joe said, my name is Cassia Laham. I am on the UNAC Administrative Committee. I'm based in Orlando, Florida. I'm also a member of Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And you may know me from keeping time right in the front, all conference. That was me. But no one's keeping time now. So I want to thank everyone who made it out to this year's UNAC conference. Absolutely. Folks came from near and far to listen, to learn, to teach, to move forward in unity as one progressive coalition against U.S. wars abroad and at home. So before we move on, just real quick, over to my right, your left. Where are folks from? Just real quick, like table all the way over there. Milwaukee. Let's go. How about over here? Denver! Awesome. Okay, how about over here? Michigan! Let's go! All right, any West Coasters? All right, where from? Vancouver! Amazing. All right, so, and let's get a table over there. Anyone? Boston. All right, we got Boston. So people are here from everywhere, and we're really... yeah. I know, you see, I started something bad. Everyone's from everywhere, and we're all united together here today in Minneapolis. Thank you all so much. So people drove and flew far and wide because we believe in the power of the people to create long-lasting peace and justice. We believe in the brotherhood of man. We believe in the righteousness of resistance. We believe in when occupied peoples and oppressed peoples have the right to not only resist but fight back against their oppressors. We believe that a better, more just world, a more equitable world is not only possible but within our reach. And our greatest strength, our most powerful tool is not the weapons of our enemies, but the solidarity we have with each other and with the oppressed people across the world. And solidarity is exactly what we have built and solidified here at this conference this weekend. And it is our hope that you take this international solidarity back with you to your local groups and ramp up your organizing efforts against those entities which seek to maintain the status quo. So with that, and in the name of unity and solidarity, I'm going to introduce the two folks on my right. Before I do, you all have these booklets hopefully in front of you. In this booklet, we have the UNAC Principles of Unity, and we also have the draft resolution. Before the Two friends to my right go over the draft resolution. I'm just going to remind folks of our principles of unity that we have agreed to in past conferences. Number one, opposition to all U.S. wars and interventions. Support for the right of all oppressed peoples to self-determination. Number three, connecting the issues. In other words, the issues of wars abroad and at home, environmental issues, militarism, etc. Number four, independence from the parties of big business. Number five, mass mobilizations as a primary means of struggle. Number six, quick response to events at home and abroad. Number seven, defense of civil liberties. Number eight, mutual self-defense. An injury to one is an injury to all. Number nine, a commitment to a democratic decision-making process. And we stuck with 9, not 10, for some reason. All right, so with that, and in the name of unity, I will go ahead and pass it off to my two friends on the right. We've got Maddie Johnson and Wyatt Miller, who will be reading the various parts of this resolution. Take it away.
Draft resolution is as follows. Free Palestine, end U.S.-backed Israeli Zionist genocide. At UNAC's founding conference, we adopted the demand, end all U.S. aid to apartheid Israel, military, economic, and diplomatic. UNAC thus became the first U.S. national anti-war coalition to take such a position. Today, this opposition to Israeli apartheid is front and center in U.S. and world politics. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, expresses the mass worldwide sentiment for Palestinian freedom. UNAC unequivocally unites with the people of Palestine. UNAC's proposed actions. UNAC will continue to build and support the mass movement in defense of Palestine and demand an end to all U.S. aid to Zionist apartheid Israel. In unity, we encourage support May 1st/May Day local actions as a workers' day to defend Palestinian resistance. Include Defend Palestine among all other worker demands on this day. Support actions against the NATO 75th Anniversary Summit, July 6th and 7th in Washington, D.C. Support national protests at the RNC Convention in Milwaukee, July 15th to the 18th. Support national protests at the DNC Convention, Chicago, August 19th to the 22nd. UNAC reaffirms the ongoing work of building a massive, independent, democratic, united, front-oriented movement aimed at engaging the U.S. majority and challenging the war makers on every front. UNAC stands categorically opposed to all U.S. wars, secret wars, special operation wars, drone wars, assassination wars, sanction wars, blockade and embargo wars, and U.S.-engineered military coups. Abolish the U.S. annual $1 trillion war and military-related budgets. Use the billion and $1 trillion for healthcare, education, social services, quality jobs at union wages, and for a safe, clean, sustainable, fossil fuel-free energy system. Close all U.S. foreign military bases. Eliminate all nuclear weapons worldwide, starting with the U.S.'s leading arsenal. Bring all the troops home now. Abolish NATO. Abolish AFRICOM. No to NATO's proxy war and Biden's $80 billion military aid to Ukraine. No to Ukraine's joining NATO. No to U.S. interventions in Niger, Zimbabwe, Somalia, and AFRICOM. End U.S.-orchestrated military coups and interventions globally, from Bolivia to Honduras to Libya, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and more.
No human being is illegal. The net result of U.S. imperialism's military, racist, and environmentally destructive policies is the ongoing devastation of the world's poor and oppressed people and nations. Millions are forced to leave their devastated homelands in search of a better life elsewhere. Open the borders, end all deportations. Rising attacks on civil and democratic rights. Today's wars abroad are increasingly accompanied by attacks on civil and democratic rights at home, with corporate media monopolies employed to restrict, if not eliminate, constitutionally protected rights to a free press, free speech, and free assembly. Mumia Abu-Jamal to Leonard Peltier, Omali Yeshitela to Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, Simone Trinidad, and hundreds of Black, Latino, and Indigenous and Muslim prisoners are held for decades behind prison walls. Free all political prisoners. No to government censorship, spying, and political persecution. Hands off free speech and First Amendment rights. Stop racist wars at home and abroad. U.S. imperialism's systematic wars around the world are matched by U.S. systemic racism and police murders at home. The U.S. imprisons the largest number and percentage of its population of any nation on earth. Police departments are increasingly militarized, armed with the same modern weapons of war that the U.S. employs the world over. Zero funds for institutionalized racist cop murder. Defend the right of the oppressed to control their communities. Unity. The progressive and workers' movement in the United States has been divided and weakened. UNAC, as a coalition of progressive, anti-war, and anti-imperialist forces, calls for unity, especially in action against the war makers.
All right, thank you, folks. So we'll give a few minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, for any folks to speak on any of these, especially the action items, perhaps, and other items in this draft resolution. We ask that you keep your comments to under 1 minute so as many folks can speak as possible.
Hi, I'm Sarah Flounders, and I just wanted to make a point on the call to support May 1, May Day, local actions, and really call for it to be a workers' day to defend Palestinian resistance. Now, this will happen in many ways, naturally, organically, as it did on International Women's Day, where there were actions across the country, and I think almost every one of them, Palestinian women and their demands were front and center. And how do we do this again with May Day this year? How many people here are involved in, or cities where May Day, May 1, is an important action? All right, so it's to think of whether this is included as a contingent or it's included as a central demand, and everyone locally has different responses. But to really make this a day of raising up Palestinian resistance and the right to resist. It really hits front and center against the attack that the Palestinian movement are terrorists. No, this is in the really heritage of the union movement, who in an earlier time were also, to organize was considered an act of terrorism. So we want to say that we defend the right to resist, and an injury to one is an injury to all, and right now there is a genocide going on. So it's the workers of the whole world who should be addressing it and defending Palestinian resistance. That's it.
Thank you. I'm back to keeping time, folks, so in the back.
I would like to add, as part of the main resolution, that we support the right to resist of active duty soldiers and sailors, especially those that are subjected to the risk of death on warships deployed in surrounding China. They have the right to resist both in conscience and in defense of their own lives. They're sitting ducks and are pawns of war, a war that should not happen. That's it.
Thank you.
As we mentioned, the wars that the United States has been involved in since 1996, the United States has participated using the military of Rwanda and Uganda in killing well over 8 million Congolese, simply because his corporations want to steal the minerals out of the eastern part of the Congo. And I believe it should be a part of the resolution as we speak about U.S. wars.
Thank you. I have
Ifea Wangaza, the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination, Greenville, South Carolina. I would like to urge that under proposed actions that we add that we support a campaign that Israel be excluded from the Olympics.
So I'm taking notes, and it's also being recorded. And if people agree, we can just add these to the resolution before it goes out in the mailings and so forth on the conference.
Abolish the doctrine of discovery, which basically is still used for land ownership claims in this country.
Thank you.
Basically decolonizing the world.
Over here.
I want to put special emphasis on the resolution support for the march on the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention. We know that change happens in the streets. We know the American public, many of the American public continue to think that change happens at the ballot box, and we need to use these marches, leverage them to raise the anti-imperialist demands in the streets against both the parties of the corporate billionaires. I don't care if you don't want to vote. I don't care if you're voting third party. I don't care, maybe you have a neighbor or you have a liberal family member who still wants to vote for Biden. Keep it in the streets no matter what. March against the Republican National Convention, march against the Democratic National Convention. See you there.
Okay, right over here. Oh, okay. That's fine. You can start over there, and then we can come up.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Hi, I want to add to the actions proposed to join the action to cancel RIMPAC, the Rim of the Pacific military exercises, which happen every other year in Hawaii and include 26 countries from around the world, including Israel, which is nowhere near the Pacific, right? Even though this is the Rim of the Pacific exercises. So the campaign to cancel it will be both in Hawaii and around the world, where we try to pressure all the governments that are sending their militaries to take place to trump the sovereignty of Hawaii and all these other countries, to try and get them to pull out as well. We're organizing a big gathering in San Diego where the U.S. Pacific Fleet takes off from to be part of RIMPAC, and we want to cancel that.
Thank you. I have someone over here.
I'm with the I'm here with the Green Party Peace Action Committee, GPACs. We supported a proposal, that is, we submitted a proposal, and I understand there's not time to discuss more than the steering committee's proposal, which we fully support. Let's adopt this steering committee's draft resolution. A central demand of the actions is clearly to stop U.S. arms shipments to the Zionist state. Maybe the steering committee would like to add that, although it's part of the title, but it could be added as a demand of the actions. We suggested some other formal ideas: a National Anti-War Leadership Council, an activity calendar, a National Anti-War Federation, and finally, point 9 of the UNAC Principles of Unity refers to democracy and democratic structure. And as this mass movement grows, it seems like that will be more and more important. And I hope the steering committee will, in editing this, consider that.
I'm Kai with M4PD. I would like to add the unanimous acknowledgement of the reality of climate change and its impact on everyone, especially oppressed nations. I would also like to add the opposition to illegal sanctions and a demand for removing the U.S. as a permanent member of the UN Security Council.
Thank you. I'm just seeing if any.
With the Party of Communist USA, we'd like to see something added for Western Sahara and for the struggle of the Sahrawi people who are resisting a military occupation by Morocco, which is supported by the United States and by Israel. So we'd like to see something in the draft resolution.
Yes, we already agreed to do that. We're going to get greetings from the ambassador from the Western Sahara. After this, I hope you'll stay to listen to it. It is extremely important, and the UNAC leadership has already agreed that we are going to send a separate solidarity message to their movement.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm here with the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and I want to propose under actions that everyone is encouraged to attend the trial of the Uhuru 3, which is set for September 3rd in Tampa, Florida. It's in the interest of everyone, every single person here, to denounce this blatant attack on the rights of African or Black people, to advocate and organize for their self-determination. So no matter what organization we're with, it is in all of our interests to make sure that we are at that trial and that we should show our support and solidarity and unity with this fight for African and Black self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Suhin Lee from China U.S. Solidarity Network. On the UNAC stand category opposed to all U.S. wars, I would like to add no war on China, U.S. out of Asia. Is that okay? That's another one more thing. When I went to Egypt 2 weeks ago, I met with many Palestinian and also Egyptian organizations. The specific one thing want me to ask the conference, that possible, is demand Egypt to open the Rafah crossing for all humanitarian aid or something like that, because they want all these humanitarian aids can go to Gaza without any interference or terror attacks.
I just wanted to add under UNAC stands categorically opposed to all U.S. wars, to add either ban or remove predatory military, police, and corrections officer recruiters from our schools and communities.
Other tattoo sleeve.
Hi, just as maybe in addition to the call to resist the NATO summit, the International League of People Struggle is holding has launched a local coalition of DC area community organizations that are connecting the NATO summit to anti-militarization and anti-police violence campaigns in the city. So it's locally rooted and national, international in scope. So I'd like to maybe just add for UNAC to support the Resist NATO Coalition's counter summit and mobilization this July.
Hi, I'm Naveen with the Party of Communists USA. Under UNAC stands categorically opposed to all U.S. wars, I would like to add something that has to do with holding Israel accountable for assassinating foreign officials, foreign diplomats, Iranian nuclear scientists. Yeah.
Marta Dueñas, Putahil Tadjan from the island of Guahan. Respectfully, if we can amend the Asia out of the Pacific to Asia out of Pacific and Asia out, U.S. out of Asia and the Pacific. We are not Asia. We are Oceania. If you look at planet Earth, it's blue. We are a blue planet, and Oceania is a continent of ourselves. So U.S. out of the Pacific, U.S. out of Asia and the Pacific. Thank you.
Hello. I'm with the Bronx Anti-War Coalition in the Bronx Green Party. I'd like to know, I'm not sure what this category will go under, but I asked all the organizations to please go to the Bronx Anti-War Coalition.org website and sign the petition for historical Palestine. Ceasefire is not enough. We need consequences of what's going on, and we want historical Palestine back. So please go to bronxantiwarcoalition.org and please sign the petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure about the category this would go under either and specifics, but I'm from the Maldives and we don't even contribute to 1% of the world's carbon emissions, but we're going to be one of the first to, go underwater. But the United States accounts for only about 5% of the global population, but is responsible for 30% of global energy use and 28% of carbon emissions. So whether it's war or nuclear or capitalism, the US needs to, do something and stand for its moral obligation with the climate crisis. So I'd love to see something on there about that.
Yeah, someone else also asked about the climate crisis, and we'll put something in there. We'll mention how we can do that.
I think the action focuses on Palestine is accurate. I would just like to add another possible action that UNAC could sponsor. May 15th is Nakba Day, and it's commemorated not just in Palestine, but by Arabs and Muslims around the world. And I would like UNAC to be sponsoring activities as appropriate in each local area on May 15th, which is Nakba Day.
Okay. Under rising attacks on civil and democratic rights is the demilitarization of U.S. law enforcement agencies, defunding and repeal of the 1033 program, and other federal funding to local law enforcement agencies for the purposes of militarization of those agencies. Abolish all cop cities, defund all cop cities.
All right, thank you. And last over here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Remy. You may have heard from me on Friday. I am the medic chair of the Coalition to March on the RNC 2024. I just want to give a big reminder that that is happening. The RNC is coming to Milwaukee on July 15th. Can I get a show of hands of how many organizations are endorsers or members of the coalition? All right. And I want to see everyone else's hands up by the time it is coalition, or by the time it's the RNC. So if your organization has not signed up into the anti-war contingent, we are trying to get as many anti-war organizations out to the RNC as possible to go right up to the doorsteps of these Republicans and let them know that they are not welcome in our city.
Hi, my name is Khalees. In regards to the people's right to self-determination, I think we should include something about dissolving the treaties that have repeatedly displaced the indigenous people of Turtle Island. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking this process seriously, for reading through this with intent. We are going to take, I think all of these comments were received in a friendly manner by everyone in the room. Does that sound correct? All right. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and take all of these comments, add them to the mix of the resolution, and send them back out for publication and for everybody to see via email and on the website. Congratulations, everybody. All right. So moving forward from a beautiful place of unity, we'll go ahead now and get some greetings from folks across the world, across the country. The first person that we're actually going to ask to come up is Richie Marino from Workers World, who we're going to ask to introduce our next speaker, who's going to be Stefan Rossi. Stefan was part of a movement called Stop World War III. UNAC was invited to such a conference back in Rome in 2023 and is a proud member of that newly formed coalition. So, Richie, if you would go ahead and announce our next speaker.
Hello, everybody. So our next speaker is going to be Stefan Rossi, who's a member of the anti-imperialist camp based in Austria. And I had a chance to meet Stefan at a conference in Rome back in October, and it was a conference to stop World War III, to abolish NATO. And one of the things that I appreciated from this group was that they were very clear on, they had a very clear analysis of imperialism and U.S. imperialism as the #1 terrorist in the world. And what I also loved when I walked into this conference was their banners that they had up on the wall, which they were in different languages and I couldn't really understand them, but I could see the symbolism. And they had like a banner of like NATO with like the NATO logo with a cross through it, and also like different like Nazi right-wing symbolisms with lines through them as well. And it was really like an anti-fascist, anti-imperialist conference, of which Stefan was one of the folks there. So let's give it up for Stefan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stefan Rossi. I'm from Germany, but I'm speaking on behalf of the anti-imperialist camp in Vienna, Austria. First of all, thanks for organizing this great event, and thanks Joe Lombardo for inviting us. It's really good to see that we have such a big community here who care about peace and justice. I'm very impressed about that. We had a similar event last year in Rome, Italy, and I wanted to tell you that before that event we had a big discussion if we should open up to groups that are not dedicated left-wing groups, but they are also for peace with Russia. So the majority said, yeah, the goal is peace, so why not? Let's invite them. And the group of participants was really big, yeah, and we thought, oh, this is going to be a big thing. And then the conference was scheduled for late October, and you know what happened in early October. And suddenly all those non-left-wing groups, they canceled their participation because they didn't want to take side for Palestine, because the only reason they wanted peace with Russia was to have access to cheap oil and gas, but not for peace or justice or these kind of stupid things. Yeah? And so our conference shrank to the old good participants, the left-wing groups, and it was like here, so we were sharing the same values, the planet over profit, peace over profit, justice over profit. And it was so good to see that you have such a big good community here, and yeah, keep up your good work, and maybe see some of you on our next event in Europe, which probably will take place in Italy again. This month we will having a conference about Palestine, but I hope that later this year we will have a general peace conference. So if you want to keep up to date with that, come see me and we will exchange contacts, and then yeah, and hope to see you soon, and good luck. Thanks.
And Stefan, thank you so much. All right, all the way from Vienna. Amazing. So from Vienna, Austria, from Germany to Ukraine, we have a video greeting actually from Ukraine, which, as you all know, has been at the center of a US-NATO proxy war with Russia for a decade.
Yeah, before we show that, let me tell you a little bit of a context. You hear in the United States of people who left Ukraine for European NATO countries, but that's not really what happened. The majority of people who left Ukraine because of the war that was going on went to Russia. In fact, twice as many went to Russia as any of the other European countries. And they formed an organization in Russia called the Organization of Ukrainian Refugees and Political Prisoners, and they've been holding some meetings, which some of us in this room have been attending online. And when they heard about this conference, they were very excited that in the belly of the beast there could be a conference like this, because people don't really understand that there is an anti-war movement in this country because it's not explained. So they sent us two greetings. We're going to just look at a short one. And they wanted to collect money to help the conference. We told them because of the rules and so forth, especially with what happened with Omali Yesatele, that it could put us in jeopardy. But we thanked them very much and asked them to use that money for their own support, for their own activities. So this is a greeting from that group of Ukrainians that now exist in exile in Russia with the intention of coming back to their own country to build that country once this war is ended.
Политэмигрантов и политзаключенных Украины приветствует соратников и товарищей на конференции ЮНАК, посвященной деколонизации и борьбе с империализмом. Украина – классический пример, когда коррумпированная и преступная власть коррупционеров и фашистов подчинила свою страну империализму. Страна, имевшая 35 лет назад свое ракетостроение, создававшая самолеты и атомные электростанции, стала аграрным и сырьевым придатком мирового капитала. Еще до начала военных действий население Украины сократилось более чем в 1,5 раза по сравнению с 1991 годом. И это было следствием обнищания украинского народа. Сегодня территория Украины стала полигоном, на котором мировой империализм ведет горячую войну с Россией. Страны империалистического центра тратят десятки миллиардов долларов, поставляя Украине современное вооружение, ракеты, танки, артиллерийские установки и системы залпового огня. Эти деньги порождают смерть и разрушение. Империалистический центр породил эту войну и продолжает ее кормить за счет ограбления своих народов. Сейчас звучат заявления империалистов, готовых отправить на Украину своих военных. Это грозит Третьей мировой войной между НАТО и Россией. Мы присоединяем свой голос к требованию прекратить бряцать оружием и остановить огонь во всех горячих точках земного шара.
All right, thank you. So next up, on Friday, you might have seen in your booklet that we were meant to have a speaker, a prominent Puerto Rican activist who was going to come and speak and open up the session. Unfortunately, she fell ill and was unable to make the trip. However, Olga Sanabria Davila from Puerto Rico sent her message to us to read before the conference. So if it's all okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and read, albeit a snippet of her speech, which was actually quite long. I had to cut it a little. But we will post the full statement on UNAC's website for you all to read. So all the way from Ukraine, now we're going to Puerto Rico. Allow me to speak on behalf of Olga Sanabria Davila. First of all, I'd like to greet all panelists, conference organizers, and all conference participants. This conference in the belly of the beast is being held at an important turning point in which two forces are pursuing conflicting objectives in diverse scenarios at the international global level, nationally, and at the local level. On the one hand are the forces of greed, exploitation, and aggression. These represent imperialism and savage capitalism in their most crude forms, while the forces of our future represent sovereignty, peace, progress, survival of global warming and climate change, and justice and abundance for humanity. In this scenario of conflicting forces, we are seeing the growth of fascist imperialist forces in the developed world and beyond, while the developing world struggles against its recolonization, against neocolonialism and colonialism in general. And while in Gaza, unforeseen levels of genocide and obliteration are being practiced by Israel with the United States behind it. Within the United States, imperialism and savage capitalism are manifest in anti-worker and anti-immigrant attacks, mass incarcerations, and violence against women and people of color. In particular, it is manifest in violence against blacks as well as violence against the environment and our planet. In this international and United States scenario, the Puerto Rican people are struggling against the United States colonial subordination and oppression. Puerto Rico is now the classic colony of the most powerful empire humanity has ever known. Our militant nationalist struggles of the early 20th century led to reforms and the so-called free associated state Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. These reforms left the model of colonial subordination and exploitation intact, while at the present, all pretense and lies about self-rule in Puerto Rico have been set aside with the adoption in 2016 by the U.S. Congress of the Promesa Law. Among other things, this misnamed law, whose acronym signifies promise, mandated the appointment by then President Barack Obama of a fiscal control board, which promptly took over Puerto Rico's public finances and imposed a draconian austerity program. The collapse of the colonial economic model of Puerto Rico, with over 40% poverty levels, and our lack of power to insert into emerging economic blocs of the developing countries, has left us in an economic limbo of extreme dependence, where we produce what we do not consume, and we do not produce what we consume, while we are held as a captive market for U.S. goods and the yearly source of $35 billion in profit for United States corporations. Despite the enormously disproportionate relation of power with the United States, our nation has historically demonstrated our resilience and fighting spirit, including accomplishing the release of all our political prisoners. Our most recently released political prisoner, Oscar Lopez Rivera, served almost 38 years in U.S. prisons for actions in favor of the independence of Puerto Rico. He was released in 2017 after our people, regardless of ideological differences, closed ranks in his support and waged a solidarity campaign for his release in Puerto Rico, the United States, and in the international arena. The issue of United States colonial rule in Puerto Rico should be front and center of the anti-imperialist struggle in the United States. Puerto Rico is the Western Sahara of Spain and Morocco, the Palestine of Israel. Thus, solidarity with the independence of Puerto Rico must be intensified, in particular in the United States. It is your government that maintains the colonial subordination of the Puerto Rican people and territory, its military occupation, its economic exploitation, and its cultural aggression. We Puerto Ricans have struggled and fought like all other peoples. The history of struggle of the Puerto Rican people has also included the love of the struggles of other peoples and our reciprocity in international solidarity. This has been manifest in our solidarity with the Vietnamese people, with the Cuban Revolution and against the blockade, with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, with the Nicaragua of Sandino, against apartheid, for the independence of Namibia, and historically with the Palestinian people. The UNAC conference, Decolonization and the Fight Against Imperialism, takes place at a dangerous time. We must all ensure that the promise of a bright future, which also characterizes our time, wins over the dangers of our times. Towards this end, struggles are being waged on all fronts. Organization is taking place on all fronts. Unity and convergence must take place on all fronts. All peoples must continue to struggle united against backward forces that are intent on exploitation, colonialism, racism, hegemony, and wars. We must continue to struggle for peace, sovereignty, independence, human rights, sustainable development, survival of global warming, and climate change, and a bright future for all of humanity. Anti-imperialist forces in the United States must include the decolonization and independence of Puerto Rico on their agenda. The struggle for a state of Palestine must win. The struggle for the independence of Puerto Rico must win. The people's struggles must win. Solidarity must prevail. All power to the struggles against colonialism, recolonization, and imperialism. All power to the people for peace, sovereignty, and justice. All right, thank you all. And lastly, here with us today, we have yet another ambassador who will be addressing our conference. And to introduce this UN ambassador is our friend Chris Halali. Please come on up.
It's a tremendous honor and a pleasure to introduce His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Sidi Omar, the representative of the Frente Polisario to the United Nations, and who works in coordination with the MINURSO. My name is Christopher Halali. I'm the International Secretary of the Party of Communist USA, and our party has had a long-standing tie with the Frente Polisario, with the youth movement, the UGTSario, and we have had the opportunity to meet with the President of Western Sahara, President Brahim Ghali, and to attend both the Polisario Congress and the UGTSario Congress. And while I was in the camps in Tindouf, I was asked by the Sahrawi comrades, why are you the only American here? Have they forgotten about us? Have they forgotten about our struggle? We have been fighting since the 70s. And I committed to them there. I made a deep commitment that I would come back and I would try to organize as much as possible so that the struggle of the Sahrawi people against the ongoing military occupation by Morocco, which is supported by the United States and by Israel, would be ended, and that the Sahrawi people would have their liberation and would have their independence. So with that, I would like to introduce His Excellency Dr. Sidi Omar, and I hope that all of us can join together in a future delegation to the camps and increase the struggle for the independence and freedom of Western Sahara. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really overwhelming, and thank you, Chris, for the kind words. Thank you very much, UNAC, for the kind invitation to be here among such dynamic and wonderful people. Well, your conference takes place at a really serious moment in our history. I think with what's happening in Gaza and elsewhere, but basically Gaza is a challenge to the conscience of all human beings on this planet. So it's time to stop talking and to act. And on that note, I would like to speak to you briefly about the struggle of the people of Western Sahara, which has a lot to do with the overarching theme of your conference: decolonization and fight against imperialism. So what is the freedom struggle of the Sahrawi people? As you may know, and like our fellow African brothers and sisters who managed to regain their rights and freedom through many long years of struggle, we were left being denied our right to independence because an African colonizer called Morocco occupied our land in 1975. And since then, Morocco has been occupying our land, oppressing our people, and plundering our natural resources, and our right to self-determination and independence being denied. In 1991, the United Nations established a mission called the United Nations Mission for the Referendum in Western Sahara, which was tasked by trying to organize a referendum in which our people will choose freely and democratically what would be their political destiny. But unfortunately, that has not materialized up to this moment. So despite the clear legality of this question, you may ask, why is that? And unfortunately, the answer is very clear. It's because Morocco has strong allies, including the United States of America and Israel, as Chris said. And because of that, Morocco has been allowed to delay and even to undermine the process leading to the liberty and independence of our people. And I'm sure that you can relate to this experience, because the complete impunity with which Morocco has been allowed to continue to occupy our land and to undermine our right to self-determination brings to mind similar situations that you may think of. Prime example, obviously, is the question of Palestine, which is a twin cause of the question of Western Sahara, and no wonder that Morocco has very close and strategic relationship with Israel, both of them being occupying powers. And this brings me to the question of now, after you have introduced briefly the struggle of the Sahrawi people, what can you do and why the struggle for freedom and independence of the Sahrawi people matter to you as political activists and to those outside? You support publicly, indeed as an action, the right of oppressed people to self-determination and independence, and that is really a noble stand that it testifies to your strong commitment to fight against injustice and oppression. And this is where I would call on you and urge you to express your solidarity and support for the Sahrawi people, because they need your solidarity and support. A very small, peaceful people who have been struggling silently, peacefully for their freedom. But perhaps that's, as you may see, maybe one of the drawbacks of being a small and peaceful people. Your struggle is not newsworthy. The BBC, Al Jazeera, or France 24 do not find that a newsworthy. But you, political activists, internationalists, know about this situation. And then, as I said, I urge you to really work hard and to try to bring more visibility to this question through all types of initiatives. The United States of America plays a very key role at the Security Council when it comes to the issue of Western Sahara. And unfortunately, and apart from its continuous support for Morocco's illegal occupation, the former Trump administration, and contrary to the principle of international law, recognized the so-called Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. The current administration has not publicly reversed that decision, so it is an urgent matter that should be taken up by urging the American government to go back to the neutral position of supporting the United Nations resolutions and revoking these illegal and unlawful measures. Lobbying your senators and House representatives, telling them about the plight of the question of the people of Western Sahara is very fundamental. But in any case, it's all about telling the story, passing the message of the Sahrawi people. And the little that you can do is better than doing nothing, because doing nothing is not an option at all. I'll finish by reminding of some words spoken by the late Nelson Mandela, the greatest son of Africa, when he said that to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a life in a way that enhances and respects the freedom of others. Thank you very much for your invitation, and thank you very much for your solidarity and support.
Thank you, Ambassador. We've had two ambassadors at this conference. I just want to indulge your patience for a very short time more. We're going to hear one more greeting, short greeting, and then Margaret Kimberley, leader of UNAC, leader of Black Alliance for Peace, and the Black Agenda Report will be just giving some closing remarks. So we're going to hear greetings right now from the Anti-Imperialist Platform. This was started by a group of anti-imperialists from South Africa. They held a recent conference, which I was invited to and attended in Athens, and they're here to give us, our conference, some brief greetings.
Congratulate UNAC for organizing such a fruitful conference with organizations from all over the world under the banner of anti-imperialism and anti-war in the context of World War III. Anti-imperialist forces in the world have grown stronger than ever before, but lots of world people are still under the threat and repression of imperialism. This is why our united anti-imperialist struggle and anti-imperialist world struggle is so important. The World Anti-Imperialist Platform and the People's Democratic Party of South Korea will continue to struggle together with UNAC, holding the anti-imperialist banner high. The big event of the platform is being organized in Washington, D.C. in July, together with more than 30 progressive political parties from around the world, and organizations like UNAC will be waging a powerful struggle against NATO. Let's meet in Washington, D.C. against NATO. The people united will be never defeated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, if I can call Margaret up, I hope she's finished her writing. Maybe it's her speech. Margaret Kimberly has been a long time member and leader of UNAC and has contributed so much to the anti-war movement, the Black Rights Movement, the movement for independent media. And we're always really, all of us who have worked with her have always been very privileged to do so. Margaret Kimberly.
Thank you. Thank you all. Power to the people. Power to the people. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, for joining us here at this UNAC conference, Decolonization and the Fight Against Imperialism. This is my 5th UNAC conference. The first was in 2012, I think it was, in Connecticut. And it was, excuse me, shortly afterward, I joined the administrative committee of UNAC. And I've had the honor of working with comrades in this organization and with people like yourselves. What do we say at UNAC? We say, stop the wars at home and abroad. We've spent this weekend talking about that war, a war waged by capitalists, racists, imperialists, usually all the same, against humanity. These people are the modern-day descendants from those who did the very same thing in centuries past. Here in Minnesota, in Mankato, Minnesota, the largest public execution in U.S. history took place when 38 Lakota men were hanged on December 26, 1862. They were killed for resisting the genocide against their people in the so-called Lakota War. We can also look outside the window here and see the Mississippi River, which begins here and flows down to the Gulf of Mexico. The Mississippi River was one of the largest means of transit in the domestic internal slave trade, as human beings were sold along this route in Missouri and Kentucky and Tennessee and Arkansas and Mississippi and Louisiana, and sold into enslavement, into slave markets along that route. Everything we've talked about this weekend have their beginnings in these stories. Stolen land, stolen human beings, wars against humanity. More recently, it was here in Minnesota in 2020 that a man named George Floyd was murdered by police. His killing set off mobilizations across the country, around the world, actually. But of course, we all remember what we were taught in science class. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And lo and behold, suddenly there were what are euphemistically called public safety centers and police training centers began to pop up all over the country. But the right term is cop cities. And yes, the word is plural. And there was a great workshop here on this topic yesterday. It's kind of hard. I don't want to preach to the choir, but there are just some things I want to remind you of. In looking at the program and talking with you all, it's clear that we know we're in a battle for survival. And that's not hyperbole. It's not possible. Unfortunately, there's so many, that's the downside of a conference. It's like, I want to go to this, I want to go to that. No, that conflicts with my workshop. But anyway, so I missed today's panel on climate change, climate justice, and war. This is a topic that doesn't get enough attention. The people I spoke of, the capitalists, the imperialists, the racists, are in the process of killing all life on the planet. With our money, you know the fossil fuel companies are subsidized, you know that, right? A few days ago, I saw this headline: Greenland's great glaciers are melting 100 times faster than estimated. Every month in the past year has been the warmest month since records were kept. March 2024 was the hottest March in history. February 2024 was the hottest February in history, and so on. And of course, a country with 800 military bases around the world plays a role. How much fossil fuel is needed to fly jets and operate ships and so on, and run military bases? So we talked about that issue here at this conference. Of course, we talked about Palestine, and we have to, we must. We say we live in the belly of the beast, and we see it in Gaza. The president, who we are told is defending democracy, went to Israel and gave a blank check to kill thousands of people. And he has the support of Congress, by the way. Now, I deliberately omit the name of the Israeli prime minister because we cannot personalize this war. That's what they're trying to do, trying to get out of it. That's what Biden and leaders in Congress and their friends in corporate media are doing, trying to distract us by pointing fingers at a person, at one individual, and making him the villain, when the U.S. is a villain as well, and will send weapons to Israel regardless of who sits in that office. And let's be clear, ethnic cleansing is the right term. That is the goal. And that's one of the things I appreciate about being here at a UNAC gathering, because people know that and will say that. The deaths of these at least 35,000 people, they're not collateral damage. Their deaths are the very goal of the project. And the crocodile tears shed are just that, because Israel will still get weapons, even after the deaths of the staff of the World Central Kitchen, an establishment NGO that worked closely with the Israeli government. The deaths of those people created a political crisis. But it was resistance, Palestinian resistance, which brought their deaths to public attention. To their great credit, Palestinians show us the dead. None of this, that might be disturbing, we won't show you that picture. No, you might want to close your eyes. Nope. They did what they usually did and showed the world these victims and accelerated the political crisis necessary to end these war crimes. UNAC understands the importance of bringing us all together from all over this country and the world. We have, as Jose just pointed out, two, not one, but two ambassadors this weekend from Nicaragua and the Western Sahara. This state and its allies and corporate media hide the rest of the world from us. UNAC does the opposite and brings the information we need to see that the same people who fight against the sovereignty of African nations and who want to destroy the Nicaraguan revolution are the same people who build cop cities. The same people who speak of mistaken, quote unquote, mistaken killings committed by the IDF sound just like the people who dismiss the more than 1,000 police killings that take place in this country and call those mistakes. Yes, it's a number that people don't hear very often. I'll say it again, an average of 3 people every day killed by police in the US. But I want to say, trying to bring this all together about us here, I hope you all know that you're a revolutionary. You, yes, you. You know, that word used to scare me. The first time someone told me I was a revolutionary, I was like, no, I'm not, you know. I'm not that important. I don't know how to do that. So it was, I felt it was a word I could not live up to. And I thought, I don't know, I had to do something very grand to, you know, call myself a revolutionary, but that's not true. Sharing these issues, working on these issues, these are revolutionary acts. We, by taking part in UNAC member organizations, we know who our enemies are. We know that they are enemies, that we have enemies. And we know that wishful thinking, reformism, is a road to failure. And that's one of the important facts of a gathering like this. It gives us renewed focus and concentrates our efforts. Let me remind you all how change takes place. We know that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice only if we bend it. How have changes come about? Positive change happens when people like us mobilize and create political crises. That's what revolutionaries always do, and that's what we know at UNAC. I also want to point out something that isn't talked about, I don't think, enough. We also have to struggle with each other. That's all to the good. It's not something to be afraid of or nervous about. We can't move forward unless we learn how to engage in principled struggle with our comrades. If you're not struggling with someone, you're not doing enough work. And I also want to point out, you know, just by being here, I think it's important to acknowledge what we're doing for ourselves and for one another when we come together like this. The capitalists want, the ruling class, they want us to be atomized, to be separate, to feel separated from each other. We're always told nobody wants to listen to us, nobody believes what we believe, no one agrees to us, agrees with us, and sometimes we have, in attempting to engage with people, even people we care about, it can be difficult. People who are in denial or are susceptible to propaganda. And that can be very frustrating, but the worst thing we can do is to believe that we are alone when we're not. There are thousands of people, millions, who don't want their public resources used for war, who know that their needs aren't being met precisely because the war makers and the fossil fuel producers get their money. One of the workshops I'm sorry to have missed was bringing anti-imperialist issues into community, workplace, school, and union organizing. Good people on that workshop. And I think it's important to say, because we should not think that we always have some heavy lift in talking to people. People know they're struggling to live. And that's why we see these funny news, you know, ironic, not hilarious funny, news stories about how well the economy's doing. And then they say, we don't know why people don't like Biden, because they're doing so well. The economy's doing so well. But people know they're not living well. They know they're struggling. And the worst thing we can do is think that we're special people. We're unique in some sort of a unique bubble. And there are plenty of people who do get what we've been talking about, and others who are desperate to hear from us. And that's why they marginalize and censor us. The ruling class knows. You wouldn't bother censoring someone, would you, if you thought, nah, nobody wants to listen to them? No, it's just the opposite. They know that people do want to hear what we say. And lastly, I don't think this is something that's going to apply to anybody here, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. One of the things that confuses people most in this country is that it portrays itself as a democracy. Of course, it's laughable, but that imperative is so strong because it is what people want to believe about themselves and the system they live in. That's why they use the word so much. They know it's appeal. It's a very powerful appeal. So we get to vote after this, they go in a smoke-filled room and choose candidates, but that's nothing but an oligarchy. But, this quadrennial political extravaganza, otherwise known as a presidential election year, can confuse a lot of people. I'm sure it's nobody here. I'm sure no one here in October is going to say, I really do need to vote for him because the other guy is so much more evil. So don't let that be you. Don't let that be anyone you call a friend. And I think, and I'm just going to close by saying this, I think in the end we're talking, I don't want to mess up the quote from Che about revolutionaries loving people, and that's an act of love changing the world, but it really is. And, sometimes when you love people, you don't always get along in a particular moment and circumstance, but we have love for the world. We would not do what we do if we didn't care about people, if we didn't care about our own communities, about this country, about people all over the world. So I will close by saying power to the people and make love, not war. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now you know. Do you hear me? Now you know why you're here, at great expense for some of us who can't afford it, because this is not the end of what we're doing as we leave today. It's the beginning of what we must do to bring this anti-war movement to a higher stage. If your organization is not a member of UNAC, it needs to be, and you need to make sure that happens. And when we call actions, we need to all do them collectively. It multiplies our strength. And that's what we need to do. So thank you all for being here. Let's go home. Let's continue build the anti-war movement as never before. There's huge tasks ahead of us. So let's make sure we can all do them together. Thank you. And thank you for all coming.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!